Hello everyone, Jose of Your Fish Keeping. This pair of breeding discs here that you're looking at, one of them is affected by Hexamita, a hole in the head, as you can see there. I intend to cover causes and what we can do about it in this video. This organism, Hexamita, this is an image under the microscope. For those of you who are familiar with it, or those of you who are learning or just want to review, you may want to stick around. This is just some interesting facts on it. But anyway, this organism falls under the classification called as flagellates. This is a artist's impression of it, I guess. Flagellates just means that they have flagella. Flagella is something that these tails that they use for locomotion or movement to propel themselves. Just as the sperm of human or sperm of other animals have the little tail, that is also called a flagellum, which is just one. Often you will hear people referring them as flagellates, just means they have flagellas. For those of you who started recently looking at any of my videos, most of us that keep fish, we do this, we learn as we go along, and we all trade information or share information based on our personal experiences. I am a nurse for 41 years, mostly critical care most of those years. And after nursing, I did a biochemistry major as a second degree also. So I do have a heavy science background. So some of the things that I mentioned, it is just kind of rehashing some of the information that I've already learned that I have lived with for most of these years. You can see clearly on above the eye, that opening right now. Hexamita most of the time starts like a little pimple. This one had 3 particular pimples on the forehead. You can see on this blue diamond discus, you can see 2 of the pimples. This was a previous electric blue ram that I had before that I successfully treated. You can see the pimples on this web picture that I found. And usually then they turn into this nasty advance of the disease if you don't treat it early. You commonly see it on cichlids. Hexamita belongs to a group of single-cell organisms called protozoa. Usually what happens with them is that they are an intestinal organism passed along with fish or other animals' poop. And in the case of fish, they travel up and lodge in the sensory ports in the head, and then just kill the tissue around it, and that's what forms the holes. You may also see it sometimes along the lateral line, the sensory lateral line of the fish, but most of the time, hence the name, is a hole in the head disease. This tank is currently under treatment, that's why it has a yellowish coloring, and I'm just going to a daily water changes right now, which is what I'm in the middle of doing. What can we do to prevent it and to treat it? One of the things that I generally do, which I stress is very important, is quarantining your fish. Anytime a fish comes from breeders, from stress of travel and so on, there's always a possibility that they could be harboring any kind of organism. These diseases can be very devastating to fish. I once had a very bad experience, and I think I rushed quarantine, and I think I've lost probably at least half of my fish. This tank was completely wiped out of all the discus and its inhabitants, and I cannot stress the importance of quarantining. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, whether you medicate or don't medicate, the important is to really observe the fish for a period. Usually parasitic infections may not manifest themselves until much later. So that's the period of observation, you do whatever works for you. I quarantine for a period of 6 to 7 weeks, and I do medicate. So you have to do whatever works for you. Usually parasitic infection, they'll show up much later. And bacterial infection, some things you can see almost immediately, but I will not take any chances introducing a new fish to a large tank that has already high price fish and a good stock. It has taken me a while to bring up my stock of discus because of their price. So it's not worth taking a risk and ruining or killing your prize fish and pets. One thing that I stopped doing was feeding bloodworms to all my fish, including the discus for sure. They love it. As you may or may not know, bloodworms, there's not a high nutritional value to the bloodworm. They do enjoy it and they do love them, but even though that they may tell you, some of the brands may tell you that they are parasite free because of the process of freezing, but I did notice that once I stopped giving them, the frequency of Hexamita is a lot less. The other thing that definitely stress is a factor. This blue diamond that we're looking at, every time he breeds and every time there are any breeding activity, I've noticed this for some reason the blue diamonds seem to do it more than some of the other males, but they're highly stressed. They're laying eggs constantly in a community aquarium, and he's constantly guarding and watching the fish. Anytime they start breeding, I always start to notice the little spots. I remove them, I treat them, but when they are breeding in a tank alone, they do not get Hexamita. So obviously this one, as soon as I removed them from a tank, the fries, they have fries, but they did not, they ate the fries basically after about over a week, and I moved them back to this tank. Within a week they were laying again. Then this pair and other pairs are constantly laying eggs. I don't have the space to keep that many tanks and to have to try to breed for profit. That's not why. This is a hobby for me. And every time these fish start breeding, they will have definitely develop Hexamita. So stress is definitely a reason. It has been documented elsewhere that stress is a reason, but I have proven it with these male discus. Every time they breed, they constantly guarding the fish. Right now they have wigglers, this group that you may see there from time to time in the videos, and these guys, this is stressful for them. They're constantly fighting off all these other fish, the smaller fish that are in there, and then the other discus. So Hexamita is definitely brought on by stress, poor water quality, keeping your parameters in check. This is something that would help avoid Hexamita. Just be aware that Hexamita is not the only internal parasites. There are many types of worms. There is tapeworms that can often affect discus. Loss of weight, skinny, wasting disease, sometimes you will see in discus. It doesn't have to be necessarily due to parasites, as I will explain briefly. And also the fish is not eating, it's hiding. These are general symptoms for a sick fish. Sometimes it's just for you to do a little bit of the detective work and try to figure out what's ailing them. The gold treatment for Hexamita is metronidazole. Flagyl is a trade name. It may be called something else wherever you live, but just plain metro. I'm going to digress for a second, but it has everything to do with the same topic here. I previously did a video that I titled Treating Skinny Discus or Wasting Disease. Now, if the fish is eating, you may still lose weight. They may still lose weight. It could be other internal parasite like a tapeworm. They're eating well, but still the parasite is consuming all the nutrition. The fish is not getting it. So despite being a very hearty eater, they still lose weight. And one of the things is on this particular, I lost about 5 discus. Now the problem here in my case was, as I said before, I don't play around with the quarantine process. If I see any hint of any illness, I treat them. I don't take a chance to let the disease progress to a point where I lose a lot of fish or start losing fish one at a time. So I had no white poop. They were eating fine. I had already treated them twice. I usually would treat, and then 2 weeks later I'll repeat the same treatment again. So there was no indications to me that this was parasite related. Now if you're not eating, you're gonna lose weight. So this tank, I had a lot of other inhabitant overstocked, like most of my tanks are, but I had a lot of fish that were very fast feeders, some tetras, rainbow fish, among others. So some of the fishes during eating activity, they would kind of hide behind the filter, behind the intake back there, and they just stay out of the rumble of the feeding frenzy, and they would be outcompeted for food. So I believe in this case that was the reason, because I had ruled out a possibility that they were parasite. They have been treated and overtreated, and there was nothing that could tell me that this was parasite related. So what I did was I removed all of the other inhabitants, just left the discus with some small dither fish that I have there, Harlequin rasboras and cardinal tetras. There's 2 remaining live gouramis that were there when I said I had lost all the fish previously. Now, there was a viewer that said, I'm surprised that you did not mention metronidazole. I did say in the video that this was the possibility of parasites was ruled out for a number of reasons, that this was really not the topic of that particular video. And he mentioned that somebody else was very thorough and he'll continue watching them. That is fine. Remember that what I said before, that this is based on our own experiences. You can certainly listen to somebody else if you find that the material is more thorough. But if I say that this is not the topic for that discussion, there's another video that encompasses more. I am dealing with one thing here. Here I'm dealing with Hexamita, and I will discuss metronidazole. And that was the digression, but it's related to what I'm talking about here. There are a number of dewormers that I've discussed in prior videos that can be also a source of intestinal parasites, calamanus worms, tapeworms, among many others, and also that can treat external parasites. Metronidazole is not a dewormer, it is an antibiotic, and it does treat Hexamita. Now, metronidazole, generally you want to use 1 gram per every 20 gallons of water. So depending on your size of the tank, then you can do the math accordingly. Now, you should treat 1 dose per day for 10 to 14 days. Once you do that treatment, you wait about 2 weeks and then you treat again, because the life cycle of Hexamita, some eggs or capsules or whatever for reproducing, they will reproduce later again, and then you can catch a dose. But again, it is 1 gram per 20 gallons for 10 to 14 days, and then you repeat later in 2 weeks. You can separate the fish and treat them separately, but it makes no sense. There is Hexamita in that tank, and you should treat the whole tank. I actually had 2 other fish that were trying to breed, actually the same one that were there, and I just put them back to make sure that I treat them all together. There's another 3 discus that I have now that are in the process of quarantining, so I'm going through my process of quarantine and treatment, among other smaller fish that are going into the other tanks. So I think in general I can say that what I said before, just I avoid bloodworms. I am very careful with my water changes. I routinely do 80% once a week. I treat periodically, and I use a dewormer about once a month or 2 every 2 months. I use flubendazole, which is a very good all-around dewormer, just in case. I do treat them regularly. Anytime there's a hint of illness, I treat them. Now, one of the things that I use as part of my quarantining, and also what I'm doing now, I use not only Metro, but I use kanamycin and nitrofurazone. They come together in a package. This trio is sold by many companies and providers, and it's considered a miracle cure, as they call it, or super cure actually, because it's a 3 very broad spectrum antibiotics. Now, I like using this one along with the Metro because I would like to avoid a secondary infections in the whole of the head. Now, a lot of the times, the 1 ram that I showed you there previously, sometimes once you treat them, the hole will cover over if they don't become infected and become worse. So the key is just to stay on top of it, treat your fish accordingly, treat them well, and they'll treat you well for years. And just do whatever works for you. And I understand that other people have different opinions. We are not doctors, we are not vets. We are just people who enjoy the hobby and like to share the information with you so that hopefully you can avoid some of the mistakes that we all make and have made. This is something that we learn by trial and error, sometimes more error than the trials. But again, you should enjoy your hobby, and if you keep your fish healthy and do whatever you can do to avoid them becoming ill, the joy becomes more enjoyable. If you're always losing fish and you're losing money, then this is one thing that will certainly keep you out of the hobby. So I hope that this was useful for you. You found something of interest. I'm sorry all the long-winded explanation and some of the science behind it. When I learn something, I like to learn not just this is what you got, this is what you do. I like to know a little bit of the science behind it. That's just my background and the way I like to learn. So thank you so much for putting up with this long video, and enjoy your fish. Thank you for watching. If you have not done so, please subscribe, share, like, and press the notification bell. Thank you for your support and visiting our channel.